My thing.
Hi, everybody. We've missed you. Welcome to Fridays with Sue and Steph. And we are going to talk today about, that it's out there. I think even there's scientific research to prove this. I don't see it in my own house, but
Okay.
people can tell you, like, in utero, there was a baby that was very active, and then the rest of their lives, they followed that temperament. Well, number one, I can't remember in utero.
Yeah, right. Let's throw that one out.
So
Yeah.
we'll start with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I can barely remember the distinctions between each of them growing up, which they resent. Go figure. Like I remember Rebecca's first word, and I remember she was the only kid, but then I can't remember much. I don't know. Did you keep baby books or anything?
I did keep baby books. Yep, would have to refer to them. Yeah, I love the question. Like, oh, what time was I born? I'm like, you're kidding, right?
Oh, so that's easy for me because 4 of my kids were born on Thursday night. And then
Okay,
the
I
other
don't
one
even know the day of the week they were born.
Oh, not one was Thursday morning, 3 were Thursday night, and one was Saturday morning. But it made it easy. It made it easy because, Thursday. And Saturday, I remember so distinctly because I was in labor for 36 hours. So
you know what? I'm just going to go with my kids were born on a Thursday too. They can Google it and figure it out. I'm just going to say, oh, Thursday. It's so funny. Sue and I both had all of our kids except for one born on a Thursday.
Okay, so in terms of temperament, I went through. I'm not going to give it an order of kid because I don't want to, kind of tell the story.
Yeah.
But let's start with my first. No, only joking.
I think you're gonna say let's start with Steph's first. That's funny.
Okay, that's good too. That would have been funny. Okay, so do you can you look at them as like toddlers and then as adults and see whether the thread carries through?
3 for 3.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I spent a lot of time thinking about it because I was like, oh, maybe that's just my first reaction. And so then I was really spending time like thinking about each one. I'm like, yep, 100%ers.
Wow. I don't think so in my house. Although,
I love that. I love that it's different.
I mean, it could. No, I don't think it. Like I'll put out there that one kid had this tremendous tenacity as a young kid to just say the same thing over and over again, which I will say, I'm sanitizing how incredibly frustrating and horrible it was to have somebody call in the morning and have that kid in the background and then call later in the day and still hear that kid in the background and go, wow, they're doing it again. And I'm like, no, not again, still. So that kid is very tenacious. Like you can take that, what was horrible to live through, and like how much restraint you had to show from like going, oh my God, stop, to being very tenacious as an adult. That thread runs through. Like one is impossible to deal with and the other gives you massive success in life. So but I have a kid who was like front and center, loved being the center of attention. I think that's temperament. I don't know. But that kid would do anything to be in the background now. Like, does not want to be front and center. So that, I don't think that's a thread across.
Interesting.
But maybe there's other things that, I don't know, maybe you could find the same way I thought that the annoyance was, maybe I didn't find the word to describe it, like tenacity and then persistence as an adult are like kind of, but I have that distinct one. I also have one who just lived the birth order role of making no noise, but does not do that as an adult. So, and I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
Okay, so it's interesting. So, right. So I think, and it may have been how I looked at I was thinking about their approach to the world. So if I'll pick whomever, right? So like how that one has like sized up situations, right? Like, so still sizes up situations that way, like sits back, watches it unfold, has lots of opinions about it, but uses it in a way in that kid's how they approach things and how they do things. And So it's funny. It's kind of like when we talk about like, oh, does she look like you? Does this one look like you? And I think some people look at their eyes and some people look at their mouths and some people, right? So it depends what you're looking at. I think I looked at how they take in the world. So,
and I don't even think that's like, so I have.
And for mine, that would be 3 for 3.
Yeah. I don't think I have, I think maybe one. But, I had one who, like, if a kid was walking up the walkway, would be like, can I go in my room and you tell them I'm not home? And so it was like, please don't make me socialize.
Yes.
And today is like very, 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 like almost like you can't believe how social. So
yeah.
I don't think so. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
No, you think that's not temperament, or that
well,
is?
so I was just going to say, these are different. These are really different things. I think like temperament. It's funny. I just started reading Susan Cain's Quiet, which I realized I think I only read an excerpt of. Maybe we got the galley or something, because all of a sudden I saw it in like in a bookstore, and I'm like, I'm not sure I've read that whole thing.
And I read the one about teens. She had another book, I believe.
So maybe I didn't, or it's been long enough that it's like reading it for the first time.
Yeah. Read it again.
So, and they talk about, introvert, extrovert, and they talk about shy and like how people think introvert means shy, and it doesn't always, right? So I think in that same way, temperament to me is more mood, or how, like.
Oh, that would totally not hold in my house then. I think ID, someone who's watching, tell us what temperament means. But whatever it actually technically means, I don't think I would have predicted my kids moving forward. Like I could tell you, maybe the work aligns with being more cerebral or being more social. Like that might align, but even still, I would say not necessarily. I mean, I had one kid who was just quiet all the time, and I always like, and this is changing a little bit now also, but I used to say that kid was like Kramer, like from Seinfeld, like when they split into the room. Okay, Jessica, thank you. Temperament, a person's or animal's nature, especially as it permanently affects their behavior. So I think all of this is about behavior, but I don't think my family's a good study of this. Like, and maybe I'm missing something, and someone would say, oh no, but this thread runs through. That's not what you're looking at.
Yeah.
But I mean, and this is not temperament, but one kid, was always taking everything apart in the house, was so frustrating. Things that worked, things that didn't work, but the things that worked really was annoying. But to this day is still taking things apart and building, and will go into a career that is building. So, that behavior is consistent.
Yeah, I'm rethinking this. I'm like just rethinking what these different words mean now.
Well, I guess like if it could be predictive, would you see your kids now as who they were when they were toddlers?
Then I would say 2 for 3. And 1, it's funny. Now I'm wondering though.
You guys, this would be so much more fun if we told you who and what, but but we're not going to.
Yeah, but I also think some of that is maturation too. So, my kids are at the ages where they're I don't know, maybe everybody would say this, but one just started college, I don't know. I was just sitting here thinking like some of it is think about who you are when you start college and versus when you end.
Okay, let's go about ourselves, because I think we're always evolving, right?
Yeah, that's good.
It's in my marriage, there's the one who re-energizes with a book, and the one who re-energizes by going out to see who wants to play. So that is consistent.
Yeah.
But we have both moved closer toward each other. So as much as Dan would rather have a book and be home, he is like completely, like no one would look at him and say that guy would rather be anywhere but here. And the reverse is true. Like I can spend days now, like kind of doing nothing, which I never could in my life. But if someone were to call in those 3 days and say, do you want to come out and do something? I'd be like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, right. And I'm much more like Dan, and people like, you would see me out and you'd be like, oh, she loves being out, but it's not true. But I think we have moved toward toward each other. I would agree with that. We were just having this conversation actually at breakfast about just introverts and extroverts and those behaviors and where you get your energy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't even think that's fixed. I think that changes too. I mean,
yeah.
I know that's her research and platform, but I just don't see any of these constants in my family. Like, I think people come and go. Like, the dynamic between the siblings changes depending on who's living near who and who's with who and all of those other things. So I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm in a small minority of probably wrong, but I think research says I'm wrong. But my anecdotal experience of my family,
right? Exactly.
Not entirely true.
Yeah, and I think I remember hearing when the kids were toddlers. I remember I think I had our oldest in daycare. I just gone back to work, and I remember the woman who owned the daycare saying that she saw a really interesting with the relationship between like a really fussy baby became a pretty calm toddler and vice versa. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think Zach, our oldest, was a colicky baby and he was an active toddler, but he was a very easy to please toddler is how I would say it. Very affable and, just whatever, but like that didn't compare to him. Like I remember thinking, oh, that could be true, but
well, again, some of it. So the thing about colic is it's physical.
Yeah. Yes.
So it might not be temperament. It might more be like I had one kid who had all sorts of like I feel like he wasn't fully baked.
Fully baked on the inside.
Well, like he had to go on one of those, horrible formulas that like smelled so vile, but he loved it.
Yeah.
Because it didn't hurt his stomach, But so that to me, like he cried and cried and cried and cried until we figured out what formula worked for him.
Yeah.
But that was physical, not temperament,
Yeah. And I like, I guess we would be on brand to think that we could always change and grow. Like, so that idea that we're not always the same and then we do change it. Maybe we take this thread, right? And it's so much easier to look back where, you're looking at someone, you're like, oh my God, well, look, of course that's what Sue's doing now. Cause this thread of blah, 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 right? I can see how this runs right through. Like she always loved to write and she, I don't know, like you sit here, but it's very hard, at current ages to look at the kids and be like, oh, this is always true.
I think you can see people who had stutters who maybe to the world looked shy and and then they overcome it and become a great orator. And I can't remember who the famous people are who overcame and became famous for being public speakers. But and maybe that line is more like a physical.
Again, yes, totally.
Doesn't let you go out there. But in terms of like what we're doing today, I think all the time about the opportunities that were presented to me that I said yes to and the ones that were presented to me that I said no to. And so being where I am today makes total sense. Because, like someone asked me to be the treasurer of a nonprofit and I was like, no, which is consistent. I don't want a spreadsheet. I hate spreadsheets, but you would have said yes because you're helping numbers. So it's not weird that we end up in these spaces. I think it's like if for someone else they would have said I hate numbers, so yes, I want to be treasurer and get more comfortable with this. But for a lot of us, we're like, let's follow the path that gives us joy right now. Like
so true.
Yeah,
so true.
Anyway, if anyone wants to jump in with whether you think you or your kids are predictable now from how they were when they were younger. I think it's an interesting question. And I guess I feel like I don't know how someone else evaluates it who's doing like social science research on it. But in my little TD lab, I think that, kids have changed. They've changed and waffled and we're, they're always a surprise to me, like a delightful surprise, but not one that I can predict.
It reminds me when I'll say something to you and I'm like, yeah, it's so weird. I don't know what happened. You're like, they grew up. That's what happened. I'm like, right.
Well, sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's just like a veering into like, look at adolescents, how much, who are we talking to? Chris Emden, who
oh my God, I loved him.
He's so crushable, and he's on our podcast a week from Tuesday.
Oh my God.
And I think he was, I can't remember the link now. He did say something that was relevant, but he's much younger, so we'll have to ask him. Anyway, you should definitely listen to him.
He thinks he's old.
Oh yeah, he said now that was so funny. So we'll just give you a preview. On your team with Sue and Steph, Chris said he is like really innovating education, mostly for black and brown kids, but it's applicable everywhere. It's so extraordinary. And he said he likes he has something called hashtag like hip hop ed. Mm-hmm. And the idea is to meet the kids where they are. And he said, it even works when you get older. Cause like I'm in my early 40s. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what we're calling old, right? Because that's not our perspective. Right. But he did also tell us that when he was a kid, he was often told he was cool. And in that he heard, but not right. Other things. But I was never told I was cool. So that was not happening for me at 40 or 50 or whatever.
Right. Same.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you guys are quiet today, but we still love seeing that you're here, and have a great week, and we will see you next week.
Yeah. Bye, guys.